Hi everyone, I'm Chanel
I'm Annmarie, and
and
we're the girls of Sweet
from
15.
15.
So, how are you doing, Chanel? Are you excited for this week's episode?
Yes, I'm really excited. This is something new. Like we kind of talk about health and wellness, but what we're talking about today is very interesting and very new. So I'm really excited for it.
Same here. So, today we are honored to have with us our second guest of the season, Mohammed Widdi. He is the owner and founder of startup Soul Detox, a spiritual med spa located in Brooklyn, New York, right now. His practice takes a holistic approach to its services, helping people achieve physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual health. They also specialize in wet cupping, also known as toxin pulling, which I had the pleasure of recently experiencing, and it was an incredible experience for me. I've never been so relaxed in my life. But I will let Mohammed go ahead and speak about it himself. Please give us a little introduction.
First and foremost, thank you again for having me on. Again, we met in person, Annmarie. I know that you're in France right now, but it's okay. Like, as we talked about, we'll eventually align in that aspect. But uh, you know, amazing. You girls exude great energy. And my name is Mohammed Widdi. I'm founder and CEO of Soul Detox, as you said. One of my main purposes in this life is to add value to people's lives. And one of those many avenues, and one of the most profound avenues, is the toxin pulling, also known as red cupping or hijama. And again, we're in the process of reviving this all across the United States and then all across the world, God willing. So again, my honor is to be a part of this.
Cupping was popularized by Michael Phelps at the 2016 Olympics. So I want to know, what are some benefits of cupping?
Cool. So a really important point. So Michael Phelps made dry cupping popular.
Mm-hmm.
Before we kind of dive into that, so there is a difference between dry cupping and then like toxin pulling, wet cupping, hijama, right?
Yes.
Difference is dry cupping is considered a controlled inflammatory response. So when someone, for example, has like a tight shoulder, right, you put some dry cups, you create the negative pressure, pulls tissue beneath the cup. And what that does is the automatic response from the human body is to bring anti-inflammatory agents to the area to help reduce tension. But with dry cupping, it's a short therapeutic feel. So it goes really, really quick. And then the toxins are still in the body, right? Even some people say that dry cupping can actually be counterproductive if the person's organs are already backed up. So, because again, when you cup the area, the body then has to recirculate all that stagnation that was built in that area. With toxin pulling, wet cupping, hijama, the difference is that it's a controlled injury response. What that means is the body recognizes it as a injury, right? Very different than an actual physical traumatic injury, right? Kind of like vampire facials, microneedling, etc. You see, like, they kind of like do like little tiny little pricks at the face, right? What that does is you're sending a signal to the body to start repairing, right? So collagen gets released, fresh oxygenated blood comes to the area, right, to repair. And one of the main powerful aspects of this is it's also detoxifying in nature, because what you're doing is you're taking out this stagnant waste that literally looks like a thick jelly. And when they've looked at it under a microscope, they found that it was dead blood cells, irregular blood cells, basically the city in the body coming out. So Michael Phelps most definitely made dry cupping popular, right? But now people are starting to catch up, or at least be aware of this more timeless spiritual practice, which is a lot more profound, which is the toxin pulling, wet cupping, hijama. And some of the benefits, not to keep rambling, right? But some of the benefits that you had asked for. So dry cupping, we could talk about once again, short therapeutic feel, reduces tension, also releases dopamine, helps you feel relaxed, right? Now, when it comes to the toxin pulling, wet cupping, hijama, we're talking about detoxifying the body. So we're talking about literally aiding in brain fog, anxiety, insomnia, so many different aspects, because we're clearing out or cleansing out the blood. When the blood circulates thousands of times a day, right, from head to toes, if you're able to open up all the pathways in the body, you're allowing for optimal circulation. With optimal circulation, the body is able to perform at its peak.
Okay.
A lot of information, I know.
Yeah, but very interesting. Yeah. I want to ask, like, how did you get into this yourself? Like, how did you start learning about it, getting more information about it, and to do it as like a practice and build a whole startup around it?
Yeah, really great question. In fact, when I first came across it, so this is one of the many things that makes it so powerful.
Mhm.
It's universal. It's mentioned in all Abrahamic faith, Judaism, Christianity, and also inside Islam. And as a
Mhm.
practicing Muslim, I came across it in my faith at first. And I was like, oh, this seems kind of wild when I first came across it, right? But
Yeah.
then when I started learning about it and really becoming desperate, so to speak, looking for answers to like, or at least solutions to kind of concerns or problems, I tried it, about a very low caliber, in a very low caliber way. I'll touch upon that later, but I still benefited greatly from that. So from my personal experience, it was that. And then it started out as a hobby. So I was doing it charity based. I've been involved in startups for like 10 years. So this is my eighth startup, just building companies, right? And yeah, and it was more of like a hobby to kind of just like help out people.
Mhm.
And I remember, I'll tell you what the big pivotal moment of my life was when it was really during primetime COVID, where
Mhm.
there was a lockdown, etc. And I got busy with charity work, but simultaneously I'm doing COVID positive clients who had some concerns with breathing, etc. And with doing toxin pulling, there was an immense improvement. So
Mhm.
at that point, I remember thinking to myself, I was at a crossroads, right? Here is this other startup that I had at the time. It was a high quality sports drink. It was going great, etc. And then there was this answer, or at least this spiritual practice that had existed for thousands of years, that was so profound that could
Mhm.
impact people's lives in a positive way in a short period of time. So I dropped that whole other startup, and I was like,
Mhm.
you know what? This is my calling. I feel like the All Creator has been prepping me all my life to revive this spiritual practice. And that's really kind of like a summarization of how I came to where I am right now.
Oh my goodness. It's crazy because I feel like in COVID, like so many people, I don't know, kind of found their way back to more like holistic health. Like, of course, like there's everyone talking about the vaccine and going get checkups and stuff, but I felt like there was like this move towards people being a little bit more like curious about like what does the holistic health bring? And the thing is that this has been something that was used like centuries ago that our ancestors used, and we just kind of lost it some way, and now we're focused on like this Western medical way of doing things.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it's not as helpful. You still see people like having cancers and all these crazy symptoms. And then now I feel like we're finding our way back to like holistic health and wellness. Like, I don't know, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah. So really valid points. What ended up happening, as you said, is, by the way, let me start off by saying, if someone is happy with that school of thought of Western medicine, power to you,
Mhm.
you know. But for the people who are looking for answers for things that are not working out, right?
Mhm.
Uh, this is, as you're saying, people are starting to tap into their roots, which is, as you said, has existed for thousands of years. And again, the combination is very important, right? Like the quality of the food, certain herbal types of approaches, right, et cetera, et cetera. So what ends up happening is, as you said, there are people that are like, hey, you know what? This avenue is not working for me.
Mhm.
Because when it comes to Western medicine or allopathic medicine, right? It's
Yeah.
great for two main things. It's great for emergencies, right? And it's great for like surgeries. So there were many times where I've seen people that delayed adjusting whatever they needed to adjust in their body to the point where it became critical that they needed to get
Mhm.
that surgery now.
Mhm.
Like a detox was not going to work, right, etc. And then there's people that, once again, when an emergency happens, like you get into a car accident, right, and there's immense physical blunt trauma, Western medicine, allopathic medicine has a place for that. When it
Mhm.
comes to preventing and curing, it doesn't do that,
Mhm.
right? As you can see, it's more of a symptomatic approach. What you're doing is just kind of like trying to stop the symptoms.
Yeah.
But when the body is telling you, hey, something is wrong,
Mhm.
and then you suppress that signal, the body then has to, you know, it goes, another concern ends up happening is because by you suppressing that signal, it causes other problems in the human body, right? And
Mhm.
we know about pharmaceuticals, et cetera. Once again, if you're happy with it, if you're like, taking that route, power to you. But for people who are not excited about it, right?
Mhm.
You're doing most definitely a lot more harm than good.
So what is one of the biggest misconceptions about wet cupping?
One of the biggest misconceptions about wet cupping, that it's painful. A lot of the times you see people, it looks frightening. Look, I'll be honest with you. When I first came across it, I was like, yo, this looks so barbaric. I'm like, what is this, right? Because like, think about it. You just see a cup full of blood, right? And what ends up happening is there's a lot of people who do it incorrectly. They'll cut too deep, right, etc. The idea is you want to be able to do a very superficial incision or scratch to be able just to bleed out the capillaries, not the main veins. Because when you bleed veins, that is deep internal blood, which is supposed to be the healthier blood. It's supposed to be very superficial. Hence why you create the negative pressure, which is like a suction. It pulls tissue beneath the cup. By doing so, you allow for stagnation to build in that area. Then you do these very superficial scratches or incisions and reapply that negative pressure, which is the suction. What ends up happening is the stagnation starts to come out. Now, if somebody does it wrong, they'll cut too deep. And then no matter how long you leave the cup on, when you release that negative pressure, the blood will just spill out versus staying where it is. Because there are people that hate against it. Listen, in life, you're never going to have anybody who's unanimously agreeing upon anything. It's life. You're going to have people that will disagree on everything, I promise you, no matter what it is, right? You have people who try to hate and say, hey, no, that's blood coagulating because it touches oxygen. Well, as someone that has been doing this for half a decade, full transparency, was taught in the beginning, because you don't come across this. So I was taught by someone who taught me wrong. And I remember when I was doing this in the early stages, I would release the cup and I'm like, all the blood would just spill out and it'd be just like a murder scene, right? And I'm like, wait a minute, this is not what it's supposed to be like, you know? I'm like, it's supposed to be a thick jelly. I'm like, why is the blood liquidy? Come to find out, then when I really took it upon myself to learn, I learned from all the different school of thoughts. There was new school, old school, even like the Chinese approach. I learned from a doctor from South Africa. Come to find out, I was cutting too deep. I was taught wrong. So what I'm saying is, one of the most misconceptions is, and I kind of went off on a rant, but that it's painful. It's not painful if you do it correctly. There is slight discomfort. Like, look, when you go get microneedling done for your face, right? You're gonna feel a little slight discomfort. It's normal. When you work out, right? That burn that you feel, the hydrogen ion burn, right? There's discomfort. Whenever anything in life has a benefit, there's a discomfort component to it, and that's just normal.
Yeah, no pain, no gain.
Exactly.
And so it seems like a big problem with holistic medicine is that there's just not enough training and research around it. So for people that are interested in getting more involved and just implementing this into their daily lives, what recommendations do you have for them?
Amazing. So this is where it gets very tricky. This is the reason why we're at the forefront of this, right? It's an unregulated industry, which means that any Joe Schmo can do it, but it doesn't mean that they're doing it correctly. And then it becomes a legal liability if you don't know how to navigate this unregulated industry, right? So Soul Detox is one of the main entities, so to speak, in the United States that is laying down the foundation here, right? You can either contact us and speak about some sort of alignment, or what we're working on right now is actually ways for these other wellness businesses or holistic approaches to be able to integrate it into their practices, right? And also keep in mind too that the system is not structured for these type of approaches to thrive. They make it very complicated, But I always tell people this: listen, have hope. When acupuncture came to the West, it was not recognized whatsoever. Now insurances pay for it, right? All it takes is passionate people to stand behind it and to push for it. Because you and I, all of us, we all know nothing in life comes to you, you have to demand it, right? And it's like that with human rights. It's like that with anything. So that's really the answer to it, is in due time, that will become, God willing, mainstream. And that's one of my main purposes here in the United States, is to make this mainstream all across the United States and then all parts of the world, God willing.
Okay. I want to ask, could you talk about like the different types of people and culture that this practice has been like passed down from? Do you think there's any appropriate way of like going about like participating in holistic health, or do you think it should be free for just everyone and anyone?
So, very great question. From a spiritual standpoint,
Mm-hmm.
everybody should be able to a certain degree understand how to do it for themselves, right? And in fact, there's a lot of people like that. They're very private. They do it from their home, and they're kind of like sprinkled around, right?
Yeah.
Like I would never want to suppress anybody that's doing that, right? Because once again, but this is also why we have three different approaches. We have like the standard, like the elite, which is, you know, a higher end approach, the standard high end, somewhere in the middle, and then the basic. When we make it we price it based off of that too. Like, hey, listen, maybe there's some financial insecurities. Here's this option. You're going to benefit anyway, right? Then let's just say someone wants to just have a better overall experience. Then there's more like the elite, right? So there is that. I guess there's both sides where it's okay if someone does it at home to their own family. But now when we're talking about doing it as a business, it becomes a whole different ballgame because now there's a lot of liability, right? If your significant other does it on you and they cut you a little bit too deep by accident, you're not going to go after them. Hopefully not, right? But it's very different. Yeah, no problems. I better watch out for you now. But the idea really is that from once again, from a business standpoint, where now it becomes widespread, this is where things have to be very critical, very strict on the approach, very sanitary, very important to do things by the book.
Okay. Yeah, for sure. That makes sense. You don't want just anyone cutting you.
No.
Yeah. A lot of so many clients, not to cut you off, but so many clients have come to me from just like doing it very privately with scars on their body because the people were using insane tools. I've asked them before. Here's some of the crazy ones. I've heard razors. I've heard box cutters. I've even heard of daggers. I'm like, oh my God, these people are trying to kill you, you know?
That is so intense.
Yeah, that's really listen, if anybody ever pulls out a dagger to say, hey, I'm gonna do some cupping on you, run away. That is not
Sounds like some Groupon type stuff.
Seriously. I swear. It's crazy.
All right, so now that we talked about like what not to do with like the daggers and the razors, how would you say we should probably implement something like a holistic practice into our self-care routine?
Again, great question. You know, a lot of people always ask me, hey, when can I see benefits? How long? And truth be told, we don't have an answer. And in fact, I always have to educate everybody. And that's what's very critical is you need to educate people that there's more than one component to life, you know? So detoxification is important, right? But then you also have the type of food, the quality of the food, right? You also have the type of activities that you do, you know, are you mobile, etc. All these things have a very important part. You know, how does one, you know, how do you sleep? You know, what type of sleep are you getting? What's the quality of your sleep, right? And this is one of the things that always, of course, when someone falls off, it's because they have a hard time changing their habits in their life because our society is not structured to support that. It's just like quick fix and that's it, you know? And just as human beings, that's natural. You don't want to kind of struggle. So the number one thing is, you know, or everything that's equal, so to speak, is the quality of your food, very important. You know, just keep away from synthetic stuff, like keep away from processed white sugar. You know, you like sugar, that's fine, that's normal. Have higher quality, right? It could be coconut sugar, could be organic cane sugar and honey. And again, this is where it gets tricky again, because then you have even honey, a lot of it's fake, and olive oil, a lot of it's fake, and it becomes like this, like you basically have to, it becomes a part of your life where you have to start sifting between which brand is legit. And certain brands can start out good, then they get secretly bought out by these big corporations, and then they start making changes. So number one thing is just start with one thing at a time, make the intention to just, you know, being seekers of knowledge. We always
Mhm.
have to keep learning till the day that we die. We don't ever stop. We can't become stagnant. So number one thing is quality of food. Make sure that you're getting rest, right? Be active, whatever it is. Everything has a place, right? Just be active no matter what that is. And again, like detoxify, right? These type of detoxifying avenues, help massage therapy, again, acupuncture, a little bit different. And then the toxin pulling, wet cupping, hijama, so many different avenues, saunas, right? Heat therapy is
Mhm.
great. So that's most definitely very important. And again, how do you speak to yourself, right? Because that it always starts with that. It's like, well, what are your thoughts translating into? Are you beating up yourself? Because that doesn't work. And of course, all that included is like spirituality. So spirituality is very broad. What that looks like is very unique for everybody.
Mm.
But most definitely having faith in the belief and hopes that you will be okay and that you will find the answers God willing.
Yeah.
Mm.
That also like speaks to me so deeply. So
Yeah, I'm so happy we have video on this podcast now because this is like right up Chanel's alley, and like her face just lit up. Like I saw it and I was like, oh my. Like,
Tell me what exactly like aligned with you so much in that regards.
for me, because I feel like when we speak about self-care, it's this idea of like it being a luxury. But like everything you spoke about are things that we should be doing in our daily lives. And especially when you speak about spirituality, like I started to feel like when I don't connect with God, when I don't give in that extra time to like spend time, then I feel like my day just doesn't go right. I feel very anxious, like something's missing. And I start to realize like spending that time in in my faith, it gives me a certain type of peace that I feel like we speak about when we talk about self-care. Like me actually spending time like practicing what I believe is my form of self-care. So it's really good to like have you say that and like bring it into like something that we speak about as a culture now. Like it's more of a buzzword, but it's so much more. Like spirituality is so big, and I feel like sometimes we don't actually connect like our life here with like what our bigger purpose is.
Correct. Amazing points once again. And this is the crazy part as well, is the state of your body
Mm,
is indicative of how spiritual you can be. So what I've come to see is when people are heavily full of toxins,
yeah.
you have a harder time being positive, being spiritual, because you're so focused on yourself. You
Mm,
feel so low, right? And a lot of times, once again, it could be hormonal imbalances, etc. And Annmarie can, vouch on this, is after
mm,
post experiencing, for example, this is why I do this once again full time, is after experiencing toxin, pulling my cup and hijama, etc., is there's a sense of spiritual balance. Like you
mm,
feel reborn. And that's where actually the slogan for the company comes from. Cleanse your soul, feel reborn. It's considered a spiritual practice. And when you cleanse your body, you actually forget what it feels like to feel balanced. And that's my personal experience too. When I tried it, I had forgotten what it felt like to feel balanced. So when I did feel balanced, I felt reborn. I felt like a new person. And it really is powerful. Yeah.
yeah, I remember when Emery told me about her experience. I remember that's what she was saying. She felt like she just had this weight lifted off her shoulders. And Emery, maybe you could tell us more about like what your experience was and if it was spiritual.
Definitely. I think for me, growing up in an immigrant household, the idea of self-care was always seen as really selfish. Like
Mm,
the idea of like getting a massage or getting a facial was like, oh wow, that's such a luxury, like Chanel was mentioning. And I think recently, after like experiencing, I don't know, like even the wet cupping and getting the massage at the studio, like I walked away just feeling very relaxed. And I was like, wow, I'd really love to implement this in my daily life. And I think there's a lot of stigma around doing things like this, that it has to be a luxury. It has to be something that's like a once in a year type of experience. But I found that when my body is more aligned, I feel more motivated. My energy levels are up. I feel more focused. And so I'm
mm.
just curious, in your opinion, how we can change the stigma around self-care, and what are some ways we can implement it into our lives just more effectively, even on a daily basis, to kind of just sit down and reconnect with yourself?
Amazing, amazing. Again, great points. Again, we all align in this, so I'm happy that we're on the same page. So the first thing is to acknowledge. You need to be able to acknowledge it as it being a priority. And as you both said, it's not a luxury, it's a priority. And I always tell this to people. I'm like, do you have loved ones? They're like, yes. I'm like, how do you expect to be there for your loved ones if you are not taking care of yourself, right? And people are like, oh, we're all gonna die anyway. And I'm like, that is true. I'm like,
wow, that
yeah.
okay.
It's interesting. People say, I'm like, you're absolutely right. We are gonna die, but we want to die strong, right? And I tell this to
hopefully not
people.
today. Yeah.
I know, hopefully not, of course, but the idea is that they will come. It's part of life, it's natural. But what I'm saying is, would you rather die strong or would you rather die suffering in a hospital bed, right? And that's one thing that's very important is life, this world that we live in is very grim. There's pros and there's cons, there's beautiful parts of it, and then there's a lot of grim aspects to it, right? So the idea is this, in order for you, right, to be the best person that you can be, you have to take care of yourself. It's not selfish. It's a necessity. It's mandatory, right? Once again, you make all these sacrifices for your loved ones, but then now you become and I don't want to use this word, but then you become, I don't want to say a problem, but now they have to take care of you, right? So, and you have to be there for your loved ones. By the way, there are going to be loved ones who are very closed off, and there's tolerance and patience with them. And, you just got to lead by example. But the idea is it's absolutely not a luxury. It's a priority because it's mandatory that we take care of ourselves. What that looks like is different. No one says that you got to be carried around and fanned and fed organic grapes all day, right? But the idea of the aspect of, once again, you taking upon yourself to take care of yourself is mandatory. Especially if you have loved ones, you want to be there for them, you must take care of yourself.
So I'm Christian, and there's a part like the main commandments are supposed to be like you're supposed to love others as you love yourself. Is there something like that in Islam?
Oh, of course. So this is one thing about the Abrahamic religions. When it
Yeah.
comes to the commandments, they all are the same.
Okay, there's a lot of crossover.
Yeah. They're all the same. Look out for your neighbor. Do not oppress anybody.
Yeah.
Don't harm anybody innocent. Give in charity. Always thank God. So always stand for like justice. So
Yeah.
there's no denying that. And in fact, inside Islam, it's actually mandatory that you have to take care of yourself.
Yes.
And you actually get judged for that. But it's crazy because in this day and age that we live in, we've lost complete touch with wellness. With taking care of ourselves. Like it's become something that's on the back burner or just completely non-existent. And this is where we are in the struggle of reviving it, right? Because certain entities want to keep us busy focusing on ourselves. It's just, listen, it is what it is, right? And they make a lot of money off of it.
Yep.
And we know that God sees everything, and what goes on in the world is a byproduct of free will. We have free will and we can choose, right?
Yeah.
And that's what it comes down to then. So us people, right, we align in that aspect. We stand against anything that is corrupt or any type of injustice. And again, we do our part. We rely on God, and then we rely on the blessings that God has blessed us with, right, to be able to do good in this world.
Oh, that's beautiful to hear, because I feel like sometimes you forget about that part. Like, of course you want to love other people, but sometimes like you said, like sometimes you have to take care of yourself as well. Like make sure that you're not going to be a burden onto others so that you can have that abundance to overflow onto other people. So I'm so happy like that you're able to like take part in that too, and that's like a part of your calling. So
and listen, you girls are right there with me. We wouldn't be on this podcast talking. And then again, also what the close to near future holds, so many opportunities. There's so much more things that we could do together. So this is just the beginning for us. All right. And again, the honor is mine as well. And again, there's a lot of amazing people, spectacular people on the team that align with that purpose. Because look, I always tell this to people, right? Number one thing is having purpose. You need to have purpose. We are a creation driven by purpose and faith. Like you have to believe in something. You either believe in God, you believe in money, you believe in something, right? It's just how we are. We have to believe in something. So what I'm saying is that there's so much that is going to happen together, and this is just the beginning of, God willing, so much more good to come.
Wow, I love that. I love
Amazing. That was such a good outro. Like, wow, I feel like he should take our jobs.
No, no, you girls are doing great.
Because I can't take kids.
No, it was perfect. So I think usually we like to end our episodes, at least for this season, with a exercise from Chanel's favorite application, ChatGPT. Would you like to explain this?
Yeah, so usually we'll end the episode saying something like, take a deep breath, and you'll say the first thing that comes to your mind, or something you want to leave the people with. Like if it was like one last statement, to kind of like end it off. But before we do that, I do want you to maybe talk a little bit more about Soul Detox and probably where people could find you and find more about you and like what your mission is.
Yeah, so our mission is to balance the unbalanced. Our mission is to revive people's, again, with the will and blessings of God, the graces of God, is to, cleanse people's souls so that way they can feel reborn. And you can find us on getsouldetox.com. All our Instagram handles, social media, same thing, TikTok, getsouldetox.com, or sorry, Get Soul Detox is all of our social media handles all across the board. Very easy to find us. We're in New York City right now, but we're in the process of expansion as we speak. We're going to be in the West Coast, also the south part of the United States, God willing. We're in the process, once again, expanding, and that's where we're at right now. And you're saying one quote?
Yeah, just something you want to leave the people with. Like you want them to take a deep breath and
no matter what happens in life, never lose hope.
Oh, I love that.
That is honestly so critical when we go through trials and tribulations. We sometimes feel hopeless, but God says, as long as you keep hopeful, I'll always be there for you, right? It's when you lose hope in God is when, things go more sour. But in the end, justice and good will always be there. And again, we believe that this world is just our passing. We're just passing through. This is not our eternal paradise. Again, not everybody's going to agree with this, of course. To each their own. We, of course, can respect. But this is what I firmly believe in, is that this is not our final place. Do as much good in this world and just expect it to come in the hereafter, God willing.
Thank you so much, Mohammed, for coming onto this podcast with us.
I appreciate you both. Again, this has been lovely, especially during these really grim times. I know there's a lot of craziness going on. But again, the number one thing is to just stay hopeful, as we said, and, nothing in life, truth be told, that's worth it comes easy.
The recording has stopped.